Picture Athens, centuries before democracy, a city on the brink of collapse. The streets echoed with unrest, and the very foundations of society seemed ready to crumble. Athens was a place of stark contrast, where the grandeur of temples and monuments masked the suffering of its people. The rich grew richer, the poor fell into debt and slavery, and society was unraveling. Families lost their land, and hope faded as more and more Athenians found themselves trapped in cycles of poverty. The city's leaders were paralyzed, unable or unwilling to act, while ordinary citizens struggled to survive. Into this chaos stepped Solon, not a king but a poet, statesman and lawmaker. He was respected for his wisdom and fairness, and he understood both the pain of the poor and the fears of the wealthy. Solon's vision was to heal Athens, not just with new laws, but with a new spirit of unity. Tasked with saving Athens, Solon's reforms touched every part of life, from the economy to politics. He restructured debts, reformed the legal system, and opened the doors of government to more citizens than ever before. His changes were sweeping, aiming to restore balance and hope. He's famous for canceling debts and freeing the enslaved, but one law stands out, a law against apathy. Solon believed that a city could only survive if its people cared enough to act, even when it was risky or uncomfortable. Solon demanded that no citizen could remain neutral in times of crisis. In moments of conflict, every Athenian was required to choose a side, to take a stand for what they believed was right. This radical idea forces us to ask, what does it mean to be a citizen? Is citizenship just about living in a place, or does it demand something more from us? Is it enough to obey, or must we act? Solon's law challenged Athenians to see themselves as active participants in their city's fate, not just bystanders. Solon believed true citizenship meant active participation, especially when the city's fate was at stake. He wanted every voice to matter, every person to feel responsible for the future of Athens. His law on apathy was a bold experiment in civic duty, insisting everyone had skin in the game. It was a call to courage, to engagement, and to the belief that a city's strength comes from its people's willingness to stand up for it. As we explore Solon's world, we'll see how this law shaped Athens, and why its message still matters today. The story of Solon is not just ancient history, it's a reminder that the health of any society depends on the passion and participation of its citizens. Who was Solon, the man who dared to outlaw indifference? Born to a moderately wealthy family, Solon understood both the elite and the common people. As a merchant, he traveled widely, learning from other cultures and governments. He was also a poet, using verse to warn against greed and call for justice. Athens was on the brink of civil war, poor against rich, each side demanding everything. The city needed a mediator, not a tyrant. In 594 BC, Athens gave Solon extraordinary power to reform its laws and constitution. He could have seized control, but instead he sought balance and peace. Solon's unique background, merchant, poet, traveler, prepared him for this moment. He aimed to create a system where all could coexist, not just survive. His wisdom and impartiality made him the right leader at the right time. Solon's reforms would pull Athens back from the edge. Athens was split between powerful aristocrats and struggling farmers. The city was a powder keg of social tension, with the wealthy elite holding all the power and the poor masses bearing the brunt of economic hardship. Many poor citizens fell into debt bondage, pledging land and freedom to survive. This system of debt slavery was a vicious cycle, trapping families for generations and stripping them of hope. The laws, unwritten and enforced by the elite, fueled resentment and the threat of revolt. The lack of a written legal code meant that justice was arbitrary, often favoring the rich and powerful. The poor demanded debt relief and land redistribution. The rich clung to privilege. This clash of interests created a volatile environment, with the potential for violent uprisings always looming. The city was paralyzed, its government ineffective, its economy stagnant. Trade and commerce suffered as trust in the system eroded, leading to widespread discontent. Social bonds frayed as people saw each other as enemies, not fellow citizens. The sense of community that once held Athens together was disintegrating. Athens was vulnerable to collapse from within and without. External threats loomed large, and internal divisions made the city-state weak and susceptible to invasion. Solon was called to act, not to tweak laws but to perform emergency surgery. His mission was to save Athens from the brink of disaster by implementing radical reforms. His reforms canceled debts, freed the enslaved, and banned loans on personal freedom. These measures were designed to break the cycle of poverty and restore dignity to the oppressed. He brought back exiled citizens, allowing them to return to their homeland and contribute to its recovery. This move was crucial in rebuilding the social fabric of Athens, and rewrote the legal code. By creating a written set of laws, Solon ensured that justice was more transparent and fair, reducing the power of the aristocracy. Solon's changes gave more power to common people, allowing them to have a say in the governance of their city. This democratization was a significant step towards a more inclusive society, and addressed the roots of conflict. By tackling the underlying issues, Solon aimed to create a more stable and harmonious Athens. Every law aimed to stabilize Athens and build a just future. Solon's vision was to create a society where all citizens could thrive regardless of their social standing. The city's survival depended on it. Without these reforms, Athens might have crumbled under the weight of its own inequalities. Among Solon's sweeping reforms, one law stood out as truly shocking. During times of civil strife, it was illegal to remain neutral. In a society where loyalty and civic duty were prized, this command was nothing short of revolutionary. Plutarch tells us that any citizen who refused to join a faction during a crisis would lose all civic rights, stripped of their privileges and protections under the law. This wasn't a minor penalty, it meant being cut off from the very fabric of Athenian life, unable to participate in assemblies, courts, or even seek justice. To be neutral was to become an outcast, shunned by neighbors, stripped of legal protection, and left without a community to call your own. The law targeted inaction, not just wrongdoing. It was a direct challenge to those who might prefer to stay silent or uninvolved. Citizens couldn't simply hide at home or wait for the storm to pass. They were compelled to pick a side and act, no matter the risk. It didn't matter which side you chose, only that you made a choice and stood by it. Indifference itself became a crime. Apathy was now a civic offense, punishable by exclusion and shame. The exact wording of Solon's law is lost to history, but its message echoes through the ages. Participation in the life of the city was not optional but mandatory. Personal comfort, private interests, even family ties were secondary to the health and survival of the city as a whole. In moments of crisis, every citizen was expected to step forward, to help heal Athens and restore its unity. There was no safe private sphere to retreat to. The fate of the city was the fate of every individual within it. This was a radical vision of citizenship. No spectators, only participants, each person responsible for the city's destiny. To stand aside, in Solon's eyes, was not just a personal failing, but a betrayal of the entire community and its future. Why force citizens to choose sides? Solon wanted to end civil strife quickly and rationally. He saw that conflicts began with extremists, while moderates stayed silent, hoping trouble would pass. But silence let radicals dominate, escalating chaos. Solon's law forced the moderate majority to get involved. By joining the fray, moderates could steer factions toward compromise and peace. The law wasn't about making people fight, it was about mobilizing good citizens. With everyone engaged, pressure for a settlement grew. Solon believed apathy allowed conflict to fester. By outlawing neutrality, he activated Athens' greatest resource, its sensible citizens. The law made peace everyone's business. No one could stand aside, everyone had to help solve the crisis. It was a bold experiment in collective responsibility. Solon's law frightened many, then and now. It violated the principle of individual freedom, the right to stay out of conflicts. Forcing citizens to pick a side felt like government overreach. What if you disagreed with both factions? The law forced you to support a cause you didn't believe in. It left no room for principled neutrality or dissent. The risks were enormous. Joining a side meant risking your life, property, and future. The law demanded a dangerous gamble from every citizen. It replaced personal judgment with a state command. Many saw this as authoritarian, not democratic. Solon's goal was unity, but the method felt oppressive. The law prioritized the collective over the individual, raising fears of unchecked state power. The question remains, can a community demand allegiance at the cost of personal freedom? Imagine Athens in crisis. A would-be tyrant, Lycurgus, seizes the Acropolis. The magistrates, led by Damocles, call citizens to defend the constitution. The city splits into two factions. Paetion, an ordinary potter, dislikes both sides and wants to stay out. But Solon's law makes neutrality impossible. A herald announces, choose a side or lose your rights. Passion must decide. support the legal order he distrusts, or risk everything with the rebels. He talks with neighbors, weighs his options, and finally joins Damocles. He's now part of the conflict, possibly fighting friends or neighbors. His choice is driven by law, not conviction. The law drags moderates from the sidelines into the heart of the city's fate. It forces ordinary people to become active participants, for better or worse. Solon's law made every citizen a stakeholder in Athens' destiny. Solon's law echoes through history and into our lives today. The idea that neutrality in crisis is itself a political act remains powerful. In the American Civil War, social pressure forced people to choose sides. During the rise of fascism, silence was seen as complicity. The world's reluctance to confront Nazi Germany showed the dangers of apathy. Modern movements, civil rights, climate action, challenge neutrality with slogans like "silence is violence." Today, pressure to choose is moral or social, not legal. No democracy would force citizens to join a faction by law. Yet Solon's question lingers: when does silence become complicity? In an age of constant information, we must ask, when is it right to stand aside? Solon's law, though extreme, still challenges us to consider our civic responsibilities. Solon's law on apathy was born from Athens' desperation. He saw that a passive citizenry threatened the city's survival. His radical solution: outlaw neutrality, force participation, and harness the power of the moderate majority. The law is troubling, a deep intrusion into personal freedom. Today we value the right to choose our battles and live in peace. Yet Solon's law asks, what is the cost of indifference? Citizenship, he believed, is an active responsibility, not a passive status. A healthy democracy needs engaged citizens, especially in crisis. The lesson isn't to compel participation by law, but to remember democracy's fragility. Our communities depend on our willingness to get involved and take a stand. In the story of society, there are no bystanders, only participants shaping the ending.